Hello, friends, and welcome into this weekly update. On behalf of our team here at NC Family, I've got John and Jerry. It is the week ending June the 5th, and
Happy June.
June is upon us. We are choosing to celebrate Fidelity Month this month. More on that in just a little bit. It has been, again, another very busy week at the North Carolina General Assembly. Jerry, there's been a lot going on. John, let's talk first about HB 87. Now, we talked to you about this a few weeks ago. We've written several articles about the ECCA, the Education Choice for Children Act. John, what happened this week that our viewers need to know about?
Well, both the House and the Senate, is that right?
Yes.
Overrode the governor's veto
Yes.
of this legislation. Of course, this bill would provide for this federal educational tax credit program to be authorized in North Carolina, consistent with action that had been taken in a lot of other states across the nation. This legislation approving North Carolina's participation in this passed the General Assembly, was vetoed by Governor Josh Stein, and so this week both the State House and State Senate took up the veto override and approved overrides in both chambers. So we were super excited to see that, and that means that this legislation becomes law in North Carolina.
Absolutely. The House voted to override the governor's veto back in May. It was a couple of weeks this past week. On Wednesday of this
Correct,
past
yes.
week is when the Senate did so. Very encouraged by this, and this, again, will bring us into participation with HB 1. Jerry?
Yeah, no, it's just creating more educational freedom.
Yeah.
But one of the important things I think they pointed out in the debate is this is two things, I guess. One, it's a tax credit. It's not a deduction. People up to $1,700 given to certain granting organizations. But the other part of it, it can be applied in both public and private schools. And there's no cost to the state.
Right.
So, it can be things like tutoring programs. There's just a wide variety as far as, again, helping parents have various avenues to help educate their children. So it's encouraging. Maybe I shouldn't even mention, but it's, okay, I know the governor kind of followed up saying, well, the government still hadn't put out the guidelines because this is 2027 when this would go
Yes.
into effect. But, I mean, obviously the guidelines are coming out. Maybe I shouldn't even be commenting on that. But I had a hard time understanding why there's opposition when this is for private and public. It's
Absolutely.
trying to help everybody find more resources in the federal government. Somebody, I think, came up with a very creative way to allow individuals to make contributions into these entities that can help public, private students.
I love what Senator Lee said yesterday on Wednesday on the floor. We're recording on Thursday. Yesterday on the floor, he said, the philanthropic efforts of people across the state of North Carolina can help children across the state, regardless. Those children in need, regardless of the school that they go to. So this is great. Yeah, it goes for tutoring, lots of different things like that. It's a great provision, and I'm encouraged that the Senate and the House have chosen to override the governor's veto. John, another specific a bill that is focused on education, the K-12 Innovation and Transformation Act. That act is 33 pages long, but one of the provisions that Senator Overcash added on Wednesday as well. John, tell us about released time education.
Right. Well, in the Senate Education Committee, that's where this bill came up, and Senator Brad Overcash, as you said, offered an amendment that would include release time for religious instruction in public schools. And basically what this is that it allows students to basically leave the school property for an hour a week or an hour a day. There's some limitations in the bill relating to that, but for specific religious instruction. And there are provisions in this amendment that require, of course, parental consent for a child to participate in release time education. No use of state funds, so there's no intermingling of taxpayer dollars with religious purposes there, just to clarify that. It requires that instruction must take place off of the school campus, unless there is a accommodation made in line with just a standard policy of kind of outside groups using provisions within the property of the school. And then the public school unit shall excuse students for a minimum of 1 hour of release time instruction a week, up to 4 hours of release time instruction a week. The provision also requires that public schools units or the school board, local school boards, shall adopt a policy that requires a school principal to excuse a student's absence from school to attend release time religious instruction. So it lays the groundwork for this program to be available to all students in public schools in North Carolina. It doesn't mandate that they do. They can voluntarily participate or not participate. Of course, again, it requires parental consent, but it opens the door for this. And there's some great organizations like LifeWise that administrate these types of programs where they provide religious instruction during the school hour or during the school day for an hour or more a week. And provide that to students who choose to participate. And so it's just a great opportunity for that.
Absolutely. Now, Jerry, I'm not an attorney. I've never played one on TV, but you are, and maybe you've played one on TV. Hi, Mom. That word shall is very important. It's a very big deal. And, of course, it doesn't necessarily necessitate that the school provide this, but it does say that they have to have a policy for this. So that's very encouraging.
You're exactly right, because if it said may, then, you don't, people go, well, maybe not. This is shall. And this is exciting to hear how this movement apparently is growing across the country. I don't know, a side note on that, and it can happen, obviously there are people who have programs within schools. This way, if you've got somebody who's, teaching the Bible from a strong perspective, moving outside the school, you're eliminating a lot of the discussion and debate. But it was interesting to hear, just when you mentioned Senator Overcash presenting this, he went back and said there's a 1952 Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court decision making this available, giving the okay to this. So he started this presentation with that, saying that, and then a mix of states have adopted this. He mentioned Vermont, Texas, showed us a whole variety of states. But then when you add requires parental consent, there's no cost to the state. There was no discussion or debate, which is interesting because just about everything has some element of discussion or debate. People heard that, they voted on it, and it was exciting to see how this was introduced, put in front of people, and they went, yes.
Well, and the bottom line about this, too, is it's currently absolutely legal. It's lawful for school systems to do this. And there are some school systems in North Carolina that are doing this right now. This piece of legislation, should it pass the General Assembly, just simply clarifies and provides some framework for this already legal program to take place in the state. And so it's a significant and, Mitch, as you said, a very important and great step forward for religious education to be taking place.
Something that we've talked about, and for those of you out there that you say, this sounds like a great idea and I'd love to have it in my local school district, go to, there are several places that you can go to learn how you could implement a released time program in your local school area. And so it's usually done through churches and churches near those schools. And so if you're interested in learning more about this, there are several places you can go. You've mentioned LifeWise. You can go to their website to learn more about how you could bring that program into your local school. Because again, the school is not required to set up the program. It's incumbent upon people just like you to set that program up or have that program implemented through the church around those school districts. So a great opportunity for you to implement that in your school district if it's not already there.
And a big part of doing that too is helping to educate the members of the local school board and the local community that this is perfectly legal already, but the legislation, as this moves forward, it's going to help to educate folks locally about the availability of this and drawing community support to encourage the school board and local school principals not to push back against it, but to embrace it and allow it as this legislation clearly would direct. Is a super thing.
Absolutely. Another thing that we've let you know about, even back as far as early in 2025 at the beginning of the biennium, is HB 301. Jerry, we've talked a lot about the protection of children on social media platforms. This has taken an interesting path through the House and then the Senate. The Senate has created their own version through a proposed committee substitute, which is now headed to the Rules Committee, which, if you're not familiar, it has to go to the Rules Committee before it can go to the Senate floor. And then once it passes the Senate, if it passes the Senate, it would go back to the House. They could choose to concur, not concur. There's still a long ways to go on this, but we want to let you know that it is making its way through the process. It still does a lot of things to protect children and give parents that backstop to provide safeguards for their children on addictive social media platforms, that sort of thing. That's a new word that's been added to the bill itself. And there's a lot going on there. Jerry, what do people need to know about this bill moving forward?
Yeah, I think the encouraging thing, like you say, it's an effort by the government to recognize we have things we're very concerned about what's happening with social media. They actually introduced on the Senate side some additional provisions related to artificial intelligence. But one of the things you mentioned they did add, which, some of these things you don't know, why is that? Is this helping? Is this making it stronger? But it's been about social media and parental consent being required for ages 14 and 15 and not being allowed at all under age 14. And then they added, and there were provisions defining social media.
Yes.
Well, now the terminology is addictive social media. I don't know. Again, you mentioned.
I think it's all addictive.
This is mine. I guess
that's
it's
me.
Training, whatever school makes you start thinking, what is the purpose of that word?
Very interesting.
Is it making it stronger, or is it making it? My first thought is could be making it the definition more restrictive, which
more
means,
narrow potential.
Yeah, which means, okay, are there ways that people can say, well, our social media doesn't fit this full definition of addictive? So hopefully the efforts are all leading towards more protection for young people. And ideally, as we support in all the things we do, parental involvement, parental consent. And I know there's a whole nother subject we could have about the App Store Accountability Act, which some people see as a much stronger, clearer way to address this. But the good news is a lot of efforts are being made on state and federal level to try to address this situation, to try to prevent the harms that we continue to hear about that are happening in all adults and children, but especially the concern about young people who are not at a point in life where they should even have the access to certain things.
Absolutely. Last update we'll give you from the General Assembly. John, there's been a provision in a omnibus bill, an ABC omnibus bill, in regard to game nights, gambling.
Yes.
And John, tell us a little bit more about that.
Omnibus or ominous?
Ominous. On
some of these omnibus bills, the word ought to be ominous ought to be used, I think. No, both in the State House and State Senate, there are bills that would make extensive changes to the state's ABC or alcohol control laws. But they also, both bills also include provisions regarding game nights for nonprofits, which are basically Las Vegas-style casino nights that can be conducted by nonprofits and other organizations as fundraising efforts. These are going on all across the state. We recognize that legislation was passed several years ago to legalize them. In North Carolina, we expressed some concerns and worked hard actually to really provide some important guardrails for the operation of these game nights. But this particular provision in both the House and the Senate bills would expand significantly the number of game nights that nonprofits could hold from 4 per year to 24 per year. That's a 500% increase. What legitimate nonprofit needs to hold 24 casino-style game nights as a fundraising event 24 times a year? I've testified in a couple of committees that we oppose it. We're hearing some positive feedback from some members in the legislature that they may remove this provision from the bill. We'll see, but just wanted to keep that on folks' radar screen. It doesn't sound like a particularly harmful provision because it deals with a fundraising mechanism for nonprofit organizations, but it is far more extensive than just that, and this provision would basically allow practically an unlimited number of casino-style game nights across the state.
At a bare minimum, it normalizes casino nights
Yes.
across the state of North Carolina, as you said, exponentially more than are currently being allowed.
And when parents are telling their kids, "Hey, we're going to
Yeah,
a casino night to raise money for this, local nonprofit
Sure.
organization," again, like you say, it normalizes the whole notion of poker and blackjack and roulette and craps being perfectly harmless and acceptable as a fundraiser for well-meaning nonprofit organizations.
Absolutely.
And I hate to even go through the mental part of it, like you say, the message at home, if this passed, and the children going, have you already been to 20 some of those this year?
Right.
And you're going, what is going on? But as you're saying all this, so John, I want to say it reinforces what happens with your involvement as well as our involvement, because we're hearing positive messages about possible changes to improve this legislation. And we mentioned the gambling part. The other part, Mark Creech, who we work together with Return America, work on a lot of issues together. He has been focused on the alcohol part, and there's been some possible significant changes being made because of the involvement of groups and individuals across the state to let legislators know, wait, this is not, we don't think this is good.
Yeah, and one of those provisions that's significant regarding the alcohol would allow ABC stores to be open on Sundays, which is a pretty significant
It's huge.
change in policy. And Mark has done, for years, an excellent job advocating for the control system that we have, the ABC and C standing for control system that we have in North Carolina. So we're grateful for Mark and his work and the partnership that we have with Return America and formerly with Mark's work at the Christian Action League.
Absolutely. Speaking of gambling, if you live in eastern North Carolina, your ears need to perk up for just a second.
Or anywhere in North Carolina.
Anywhere in North Carolina, but specifically the I-95 corridor in the southern portion of the state. John, there is the potential for a casino in southeastern North Carolina. Tell us what we need to know about what's going on in Robeson County.
Well, I'm going to be very brief with this, but as we've talked about for years, the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina has been seeking full federal recognition for the tribe, and they got that approved last year in December as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. And one of the things that is inherent with full federal recognition of Indian tribes in the country is a right to pursue gambling operations. So the Lumbee tribe itself is actually having a vote on June 23rd to make some changes to their tribal constitution that would allow the tribal leadership to negotiate gambling with the state of North Carolina. And so this would really pave the way for the tribe to move forward with the pursuit of gambling operations and a massive casino development along the I-95 corridor in eastern North Carolina. So this vote is coming up on June the 23rd. I submitted actually an op-ed to the Robesonian paper, the local newspaper in that area, which was published this past Saturday. It's available online. We'll provide a link to that below the video here. But we're really making the point about how harmful a massive casino-style development would be in eastern North Carolina. It will harm individuals and families. It will cannibalize the local economy, local businesses, and these are things that you often don't hear in relation to, the economic boons
Absolutely.
purportedly and supposedly that a casino development of this style would bring to the area.
Absolutely. In
So
spite of what the gambling industry tells people, it harms families, it destroys communities, and it's not economically advantageous, period. It's a concerning factor. We'll continue to update you as we know more about this developing story.
Yes, and in addition to the op-ed that was run in the Robesonian and other efforts that we're making to educate local citizens and tribal members, for that matter, about the harms that a casino would bring to eastern North Carolina, because it's not going to just affect members of the Lumbee tribe, it will affect the entire state.
Absolutely.
And especially families in eastern North Carolina and in the eastern or southeastern region of our country.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up our weekly update, we want to let you know that we're celebrating Fidelity Month this month, and our friends at fidelitymonth.com, you can go there to learn more about what Fidelity Month is. There's a link to that website below this video, and we're just celebrating what God has done for us and how we can be faithful to Him and through our marriages and to our families, being faithful this Fidelity Month during June. Jerry?
Well, it is. I know that there's been a movement across the country to celebrate this. I know some states, Tennessee, Arkansas, Indiana, and Oklahoma, have all either had Nuclear Family Month or Fidelity Month, where they say celebrating faithfulness to God, family, and country.
Excellent.
And, of course, it's important all the time, but this year, what a great message to put out there. This is how God has brought us to this point, is working in this country to celebrate His faithfulness and what we've seen happen in our country because of the focus on the importance of family and being supportive of that. So it's a great positive message.
Absolutely.
And get into the details. But Professor Robert George, he's been a leader back when the marriage debate was going on across the country. He helped lead the way in a significant, somebody who's a college professor in a challenging environment, knows he speaks the truth in love. And this is one more example of where he's seen our country was moving away from understanding what is it that's brought us to this point. Mm-hmm. And he's going, we need to go back and turn our focus back to these. He's got the importance of fidelity to God, spouses and families, and our country and communities, and which sounds familiar with what God put on our hearts to be what our focus is.
That's right. That's right. To ensure that our state, North Carolina, and nation are places where God is honored, religious freedom flourishes, families thrive, and life is cherished.
Amen.
Well, we are so grateful for you watching this weekly update video. On behalf of our entire team here at NC Family, John, Jerry, I'm Mitch. Thank you so much for watching this week's weekly update video. God bless you all.